Hello, you multi ministries of multiple myriad multiverses. Quite a complex, actually, when you think about it. Multiple myriad multiverses, and they probably exist in an infinite variety. But anyway, that's a malt mention. Welcome to the Bothy. Welcome to Ralphie Review 977. And a big thank you to Paul Tromp for the malt mention. In this review, I am, surprise, reviewing Glen Scotia single malt Scotch whisky, a particular version of it. And I'll come to that shortly. But before I do so, I want to thank today's sponsor of this video. You. You sponsor this video because you watch it. And if you click in the ads, I get a little bit of income. And that's the way it works. And if you want to sponsor me a little bit further, why don't you check out my Patreon page? It's very reasonable and it represents good value. But one thing that it annoys me in some videos that I watch is, for starters, the adverts that kind of suddenly jump in a third or halfway through the video. Now, I just don't do that. I tried it once and I wasn't comfortable with it. Although, quite literally, having that advert there doubled my YouTube income. That's how valuable they are to advertisers. To literally halfway through your focus on a video, they can jump in with whatever they're advertising, but it just doesn't work for me in this channel. And what I find amusing at times, I'm watching a serious video, a really informative video, and then suddenly the advert jumps in unexpectedly and it is completely and totally inappropriate. In fact, it's so inappropriate, I just burst out laughing because it actually conflicts with the information that's in the video that I watch itself. And therefore, what you get is the phenomenon of anti-advertising. And this happens online in a way that doesn't happen in traditional media or legacy media, where they have much more control of it because they exercise more control of it. So you have a theme of a video, and because it kind of generally sort of ties in with the theme of the video, the advertisers will put in something. I mean, a great example, by the way, if you're in the United States, particularly if you're in the USA, I'll do a video absolutely slating a single malt that's loaded with caramel and chill filtered. Then halfway through the video, well, not at the beginning of the video or at the end of the video, because I don't have them in the middle unless YouTube put them in there themselves without my permission. Hey, you know, it's the way it goes. It's possible. But you'll get some ubiquitous corporate multinational brand trying to sell their shit. And I mean, I'm not criticising it, you know, they've got to sell product, but you know, the banality and the processing in the product is completely contrary to the message that I'm presenting in my videos. Anyway, there you go. Another thing I don't do is sit here and then just say, and our sponsor of today's video is blah, 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 and then try and give you something that is completely unrelated to whiskey because I'm getting money for it. And even if it was related to whiskey, I still wouldn't do it. So let's get on with the video. And thank you for your sponsorship. Glen Scotia Double Cask. Rum cask finish. I've already poured a glass, by the way, you probably noticed. I'm pouring another little glass. I won't pour much, I don't need to. Bottled at 46%, and first fill bourbon casks, followed by Demerara rum casks, and it says on the back of the label, yeah, I found it. Where's a steampunker when you need it? Non-chill filtered and natural colour. Okay, dokie. This says it's an 8-month finish in Demerara rum barrels. And while the signature notes of caramel and sea spray are still present, signature of sea spray, not come across that for a while. We just usually call it brine or seashore. But sea spray is kind of nice, isn't it? It's nice and marketing-y. I know I'm being facetious. I'm just being facetious. It's just the way it is. It's what you get with these videos now and again. And while the signature of caramel and sea salt spray are present, the finish adds an exotic dimension of melted sugar, molasses and tropical fruit notes. The result is an adventurous single malt whisky, non-chill filtered and natural colour, and then they repeat it twice, which is good, by the way. Non-chill filtered and natural colour, because previous versions of this have had caramel added, which really have not helped. So I've just poured a glass of this. Glen Scotia, to remind you, is the other distillery across the road, and just, well, it's all, not just across the road, but it's the other distillery in Campbellton, apart from Springbank and Glengyle distilleries, right? It's the one that for many years was so neglected and overlooked, and yet the signature from Glen Scotia is one of the finest that comes out of Scotland. I would equate it, frankly, with Glen Grant, when they actually originally made Glen Grant to a high standard, which they don't do now, and I'm just telling you that so as you know. The certain signatures and single malts, I need to share this with you. I'm just going to do it. I used to look out for them, particularly Glen Grant from independent bottlers. At reasonable price, you got fabulous whisky, matured in fabulous casks for a fabulous period of time. But I'm telling you right now, and it hurts me to say this, those days are gone. And I'm also going to add, they're never coming back, because it's just not going to happen. The 1980s and 1990s were the golden age of Scotch whisky. And it has faded, and it will never be replaced. The best option we have is the revival of competent, interesting distilleries under new ownership, like we have with Glen Scotia, and the new generation of integrity-focused, flavour-focused distilleries like Ardnamurchan, Isle of Raasay, Loch Lee, Wolfburn. These Choravaig, new exciting distilleries that are literally starting from scratch, and they're coming in with a fresh mindset. Because I see too many single malt signatures, which every now and again you get a flash of inspiration from them in one or two of their bottlings, but so many of their bottlings are just lackluster. And it didn't used to matter a few years ago, but it really, really matters now. Because it's not the industry that's changed. It's the customers that have changed and are still changing even as I speak. The small but growing army of genuine whisky fans who really know good smell and really know good flavour, who understand it, will pay a modest premium for it, but will immediately know, as soon as they open a bottle, when something's wrong. And heaven help the distiller who plays Russian roulette with their reputation by bad bottlings when they've got good casks available. Nose. Sweet on the nose, a little bit of brown sugar. I was expecting a little more volume. Seems quite restrained, seems quite reserved. But I'll just give it a bit more time in the glass. Patience, malt mates, is always a virtue. Quite sharp. Quite grain citrus. With a superficial sweet rummish note running through it. A sort of British style Muscovado type rum that I would associate with a brand called Pussers. then it becomes a little bit more wood sour from the rum wood, right? Because the rum, when it had been decanted from the casks have been left empty for a little while. So things have got a little bit more funky in the cask. And it's really affecting the development. The actual original bourbon matured Glen Scotia is very much in the background, out of way, out of sight, out of presence. And you're getting on initial contact, as you get with many of these double matured casks, secondary finished things, you get the second cask calling all the shots initially, even when the shots are out of tune, as is the case with this. The complexity of the rum just doesn't exist there. These are fairly mediocre rum casks. But fortunately, I have a lot of experience with whiskey, and I know how to navigate myself through initial bad impressions. And when you come back for my extras, 977 extras, Maltmates, I'm going to talk about navigating your way through a whiskey. I'm going to kind of start to introduce this concept to help you get your bearings. There's a fly in here. It's a blue bottle. And it's annoying me, but there's nothing I can do about it, so just have to carry on with the video. I don't edit, you know. I'm going to add a drop of water. You see, the thing is, we expect high things from Glen Scotia because we've probably got a bottle of Victoriana. We've probably bought the standard 12-year-old. And these are really good whiskies because Glen Scotia is a great distillery, can produce fine, fine things. All you need to do is get the combination between ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks right for your standard bottling, and you're home and dry. And also with Glen Scotia, you want a little bit in the mix of refill casks, so as you get more of that youthful presence of the signature itself, you know, coming through relatively older whiskey, because it's such a good signature. I've added some water here. Did I add much? No, I didn't add much at all. It's very easy to drown this whiskey, very easy to add too much water. 5 millilitres would be too much water, so I've added 3. That's as much as I'm adding. This glass, I've already added water, and you'll notice it's a significantly bigger pour. There's a reason for that. I shall come to it shortly. Better already in the nose. Grapes, melon, nice little bit of barley sugar, intense barley sugar. Still a bit two-dimensional in the arrival. The sourness dominates, slightly out of key. It's a kind of grain sick sour. So that's really not a compliment. It doesn't progress in any direction. It doesn't morph. It doesn't evolve in development. It remains really quite superficial, two-dimensional. And it finishes something light and crisp. And probably the reason they didn't add caramel colourant to this is because it would have destroyed it. Particularly in the finish, because the finish is really light. Now at this point, I'm going to give my first impressions a malt mark. $75. It's a malt mark. But we've not finished this review yet, because what I've done is I poured a second glass about an hour ago, and I added just a small drop of water because I could tell it was a fragile whiskey and wouldn't take much water. And I know fine well why they selected these casks for the rum finish, because they felt the need to beef them up. Because the cask effect of the first fill bourbon casks, first time round in this Glen Scotia, have been very reserved and restrained. But leave your whiskey for a good length of time. I've left it an hour. nose it, and you get this wonderful, almost marshmallow, creamy, soft sweetness, interspersed with some light melon, soft sultana, and some beautiful, super sweet Italian grapes. It's a completely, and I'm not just marginally here, malt mates, this is a completely different experience. Because now that we've chased off the banality and mediocrity of the rum cask finish, which, my goodness, they left it, what's 8 months, is it? They left it 8 months too long. We're getting to the original whiskey that they started with before they felt the inclination to finish it. And it really is a very good experience. Beautiful nose. Languid, soft, understated, long, oily, viscous, beautiful, exquisite, sweet and sour, with a touch of bitterness from gentian. It's a herb you find in absinthe. But soft gentian bitterness, mild, spicy ginger in there. The development has got this lovely sake note on the development with the ginger in tandem, and that sweetness never quite goes away, and it's not a terribly long finish, but what it is so much better than putting on a failed cask finish. What do we bring it up to now? And it's not, I don't want to overdo this, but it's still a significant difference. We're now up to 82 out of 100. And to get a difference of 7 marks, that's a huge margin. All you're doing is letting the superficiality of a short-term fix cask double maturation effort just float away, because it will. Just add a small drop of water, but behind it is a rather delicate, a very delicate version of Glen Scotia. But in itself, it's got a beautiful signature. But it's not a conventional standard delivery. It's subtle, it's delicate, it's mild, it's complex. This behaves so much like one of the finest Auchentoshanes that you can get. You're getting the real lowland character from Campbelltown here in this bottling, and the quality just takes off like a rocket ship. But it's not perfect, far from it. I mean, it's not a brilliant whiskey, because the development is relatively short and the finish there's not a lot happening in the finish. But these original fresh bourbon casks, what would you do? What would I have done in their position? Well, I'd have taken this batch, and then I'd have taken 1/3 and put them into new first fill bourbon casks for at least a year. That's what I would have done. And then afterwards, I'd have basically blended it all together in a vat for at least a week, or even blend it all together back into the original casks for another year, and then we'd have quite a significant result. But there again, from what I'm saying, you can see there's a lot of work goes into this, a lot of additional work with additional money involved, additional time, additional hands-on employee interactiveness. This costs money. So I know why they've done it. I know why it's gone wrong. And I know that it's hiding something which is absolutely delightful. Which, for people who don't have the patience with whiskey, they're never going to find this. So what's the difference? Drinking it as soon as you pour it. Pour it. Decent measure, by the way, because it's worth pouring. Add a small amount of water. Not much. Less than you think. And then just leave it for an hour. And you've got 2 completely different whiskies. Completely different. It's not marginal. It's significant. I'm Ralphie, hope you enjoyed this. My final mark, well, you take your pick. You take your pick, depends how you drink your whiskey as to which mark you wish to apply to your experience. But am I glad I bought this? Yeah. What's been the highlight of this bottle is really just applying my experience and knowing how to actually navigate this. Navigate a bottle which starts off very unpromising and then ends up delivering a little hidden treasure. See you soon.